Hear ye, hear ye.
All right. It is Tuesday, June the 14th at 6 p.m. We'll call to order this meeting of the Murphysboro City Council. And as always, I'd ask that we would all rise. We have with us this evening Pastor Dean Aiken, and I know he's got a couple of thoughts he wants to share with us, and then he's going to lead us in an invocation. Pastor Aiken.
Amen. I just want to take just a moment, Mayor. I know it's dangerous when you get the preachers forward. But back in September, the first week of September of this past year, I suffered a stroke and affected my left brain and I lost my speech, activity in my right arm, my right leg. My wife called 911 and the doctor said if she hadn't have called 911, I would have probably been dead. I have not had the opportunity to say to this august body how much I appreciated all the people that came. We had the MP people, we had police, we had the sheriff's department, we had the fire department. Within less than 10 minutes, my bedroom was full of loving and caring people. And they did that. They took care of me. And they lifted me up, helped me out to the ambulance. 2 young ladies drove the ambulance. I'd always heard that the ambulance was one of the hardest riding vehicles you could be in. But those 2 girls took me to Carbondale. I felt like I was floating on a cloud. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. I tell you, City, you have some wonderful, dedicated, professional people here in this city. And I humbly thank all of the departments for everything they do for us. And I thank all of you for what you do for our city and for us as individual members of that city. And I thank the Mayor for the opportunity to share that.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Thank you for sharing it. We appreciate it, Pastor Aikens.
Can we just bow our hearts in a word of prayer? Father God, this august body of people have gathered once again for their meeting. Only you know what our future is. But these people who are dedicated do their very best for every one of us as citizens of this great city that we live in. We thank you for their lives. We thank you for their efforts. We pray you give them divine wisdom and strength and just minister to them. Like in a meeting tonight, give them divine insight. We're just going to give you praise for all of these people from the mayor down. Bless them, help them, because we are so thankful for them. And we give you praise for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
We can do Cheryl there. I can see it here. No. We just need to chair, we need to move some chairs down. She doesn't have
The
one.
broken one?
Oh.
Just the chairs are in that corner. If everybody can move one down.
Move our chairs
Gloria, you have to sit on the floor. Okay.
I knew Russell wasn't gonna be here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
There it is. I don't know how I broke it.
Yeah, they're working. My granddaughter is.
Are we in order now?
Sorry. I just sort of made
All right. Clerk Gonzaga, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes.
Here.
Alderman Curry Witzman.
Here.
Alderman Campos.
Here.
Alderman Austin.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Brown. Alderman Pittman.
Here.
Alderman Urbis.
Here.
Alderman McComb.
Here.
Alderman Bastian.
Here.
Alderman Gladden.
Here.
Mayor Stevens.
Here. All right, we'll go ahead and get into our agenda this evening. First, we have the consideration of minutes from May 24th, 2022. I'd Have to entertain any questions or amendments to the minutes at this time. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a consideration of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll registers. And I'd entertain any questions on the bills. Ms. Campos.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a maybe question, but in page 1, marketing support in design for $937.50. Then we go to page 2, Bruce Brothers staff room for $5,000. Marketing block parties.
This is the whole total.
Yeah, okay. So you have the whole total and you have
Go
the
ahead.
answer?
Go, I know I don't have the answer, but,
Everything is coming from the marketing department.
no, it's all coming from tourism. is
From
what it is.
tourism, the same account.
And there's $12,460 on this.
Yes. My
I
question-
don't know if he's gonna go over budget by doing this and what kind of plan he has. He's still got monies that, from tourism, from hotel motel, that he's staying within. But yeah, we have over $12,000 in tourism things on this agenda, or on this.
Yeah, I mean,
Is your question, Gloria, like where the money
yeah,
is?
it is the same account, tourism and everything, but it seems like it hit us all at once, and then $5,000 to Bruce Brothers, who, it is for-profit business. So, yeah,
And, you
That's
know,
my
what's to
question.
say that the corner doesn't need that monies, or the, see, that bothers me too, and I don't know who chooses who he's,
Well,
who
the
they're-
Tourism Commission obviously votes on all
Yeah.
of those,
I get that, but
so that's who chooses. But
it's not just like Mike Jones that makes these choices.
No, all
It's the
the-
whole tourism committee.
It's the board?
all the expenditures that show up before us have been
Yeah,
approved by
their
the
board.
Tourism
And
Commission.
I get that, it's just a matter of, if you think about it, I think they should be very careful about it if they're setting a precedent on, if you're gonna give $1,000 to Bruce Brothers, why can't the VFW or the American Legion or other community-related places? And I guess if they ask for it, they could be considered, but I too, so it just seemed like a lot of money all of
Yeah.
a sudden in tourism on this one. So I added them up, it's $12,460. That's a lot.
Now, for whatever it's worth, I did share, and I passed it out right before the council meeting, some information from Bruce Brothers in regards to their request that was funded from tourism, and they talk about the various nonprofit groups that they have worked with to help fund their endeavors. I think they give 10% of their proceeds on those nights to whether it be Relay for Life or St. Francis Care, and there's a bunch of various ones. So there is some collaboration with other groups, and I do see on Facebook people from Carbondale and other places who come over for
I
those
get that.
events. But I do share your concern to some extent that instead of the Tourism Commission granting $5,000 to any for-profit business, it may be better in the future for us to communicate to tourism that we would, okay, fine, if a private business wants to host something they think's gonna bring people in and they wanna do additional advertising, they could do that advertising and then submit a bill for that advertising to tourism for reimbursement. I think it would create an extra layer of transparency and things where.
The transparency I was a
Handle that way.
little concerned about, yes. And like I said, you told me, but who chooses?
Right. Debbie, did you have your?
Yeah, so you and I talked about it. I think I've thought in the past that we never seem to know until after the fact, until it shows up on
Yep.
accounts payable.
Yeah,
when these
and that's
things
part of
come
my
up.
concern too.
So I suggested that anytime it's a large amount like that, not if we need to set a dollar amount, you know, over $1,000, that hey, let us know beforehand. what it's going to be instead of, hey, this is the check we wrote, we just need you to sign it, you know? And then I agree with what Will said. I think if we were writing those checks to the actual vendors and as opposed to a business that's not a non-for-profit organization, you know, the perception of that would be a lot different.
More
than-
transparent.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Gary,
I-
you had-
And it may be just because so much hit at once that it jumped out at all of us.
Well, they finally have money.
Right.
Well, yeah, we have a new hotel down here, that's why.
When I get done, I'll ask one question.
Okay.
Let's almost pay with them.
They've got on May the 6th, they donated 10% of the profit to the food pantry. And then to Relay Life and Ministry. Is there any way we could find out
The amount.
how much they donated? I mean, that would solve a big question. If they're donating back over the $5,000 is one thing. But they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 events scheduled for that $5,000. And they got all but August the 9th and September the 2nd, who they're going to donate the money. That's to be announced later.
Well, and
But
they may be able to tell us what they got, what their 10% was. May not be able to, I don't know, without looking.
But
Did you receive it in May?
it would just, for me, myself, or for the council, I think it'd be nice to know, you know, are they donating $100? Are they donating $50? What they're donating back? If not, if they're not giving the whole $5,000 back, then they're promoting their business using somebody else's money. And I mean, that's just the way I look at it. If they can answer the question of how much money they're giving back to each organization, would, you know, if they're giving back over the $5,000, that,
Well, if they're only giving 10%, I can't imagine that they're making 50 grand on those nights, and you know.
well, I mean,
Well, that'd be
Those-
5,000 total you're talking about.
yeah, I mean, not the one that went through the
The
whole
whole thing,
event.
okay, okay.
If they're only giving back $100 a night,
Right.
then all that money is doing is putting money in their business's pocket.
Well, I think it's also, you know, we can't forget either that if their events are successful, there's sales tax charged on everything that they sell, and of course, that benefits the city
I mean-
coffers. So,
They tell you how much they spend, you know, they spend about $6,500 on their music, you
Yeah.
know. But, it'd just be interesting to know, because it's a tax write-off of them, probably what they're donating to these different organizations. And they got some nice organizations on here. You know,
Sure.
It'd just be nice to know what, I mean, it's not gonna be the same every time, because they're not gonna make the same money
all
every
sorts of
time.
factors, weather and whatever, yeah.
That's all I was.
John?
Well, yeah, I agree with Gary. I mean, basically, you know, you mentioned they're donating, you know, they're getting a deduction for spending our money potentially.
They are.
I mean, I didn't know we were funding private businesses with tourism.
Yeah, that's what it got me.
Yeah, that was like,
I would just point out that we did fund them last year at the amount of $1,300. It was just a smaller amount, so I don't think anybody, you know, it didn't raise as much of a concern. Mr. Evans?
So a couple things. Number one, they will be getting a 1099 for that, so it'll be reportable to them, since it exceeds the $600, so that's one issue. But I think we have two issues at bay here, really. We have the issue of, you know, the way it was given to these organizations, that's one issue. But then somebody else mentioned, you know, the amount, you know, and whether that's gonna go over budget or whatever. Now, I don't have the budget for that line item with me or verbatim in my head at the moment, but I do know we raised it for this year, since they were gonna be getting much more revenue. We did raise the amount that they were going to spend. Next meeting, I can actually tell you where they are specifically versus where they should be on budget.
And I would think if they're over budget, they're gonna be over budget on the revenue side as well.
Possibly, and I can tell you, I'll let you know that as well. I just don't have that at my fingertips at the moment.
We still have Apple Festival, and we still have December. So, yeah, I mean, there is a whole chunk of money going in one month. But the music is paid for, so basically, let's go and enjoy the party.
Mr. McComb?
Yeah, on page 8, list 435, the Bain Tourism give them $3,500 for marketing. What are they marketing?
It's my understanding that that is the marketing individual for 17th Street Barbecue. Now, I'm not sure what all is being done under that umbrella, but I can't tell you because I didn't have time today to follow up on that.
Well, it's just something that I think we should know. I mean, what they're using that money for. If they're just marketing 17th Street with that 3,500, I don't, it's kind of like the 5,000 up there, but I don't see what 17th Street, they're giving back 10% of the profit. This marketing, if it's only for 17th Street, you know, I don't see that personally, but it's whatever the council wants to do. You know, my personal opinion, that's a lot of money to give to one business just to market it. If they was marketing Cindy B's with that and some of the other little restaurants, but we don't have many.
Mr.
But there's
Pittman?
more than just one.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was to market the barbecue cook-off, you know, as opposed to just marketing the 17th Street,
Right.
I'd feel a lot more comfortable with that as well.
Well, so, does anybody have any questions on the bills other than the tourism-related items? Just so I can...
No.
No?
Okay. Well then, do we want to make a motion to pay the bills with these items included and ask for more information on things going forward? Do we want to pay these bills without those items and try to get more information before we release those checks? What do you want to do here, WJ?
I mean, after hearing everybody's opinion on it, I think it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and hold these off and get a little bit more info. You know, we could get the Scott's numbers on the budget. We could find out what the 1750 or the 3,500 for 17th Street is, and then we can find out what the amounts that have gone so far to the charities from the Bruise Brothers.
Okay.
And then put them back on accounts payable next time.
Mr. Gladden?
We ought to ask the tourism board for a report and specifically
Absolutely.
what we want the information for. And they can ask Bruce Brothers, you know, they're the ones that should be asking the questions. And ask Mike or whoever to be here at the next meeting with a report on these items.
I will do that.
And I don't think it would hurt in the future, you know, for them to be here once a quarter or one meeting a month.
We've
Now
talked
that
about
we
that
are
numerous
spending, you know, in the
times.
past, it's not been a big issue because there hasn't been that big of a budget for them. But now there's a lot of money going through there that it
Yep.
wouldn't hurt to get an update every 2 or 3 months and see what their plans are and what happened with the plans that they told us last time, what came fruitful from those monies and everything else. So.
It would be nice to know ahead of, you know, like future events. Are they flying by the seat of their pants and just doing
Well,
this as they go
we-
along? Or do they have future plans? That would be nice to know.
I have sort of some grace for them because up until now, we've never really asked any questions. We've always
Right.
just said,
Oh, I
that's
agree.
tourism money.
Right.
Yeah, I
And so
agree.
the trend of history has always been, we vote on this, send it to the council, and
And I've
that's
said,
that.
and I've said I don't think
Times are
there's-
changing.
I don't
We've
think
got more
there's
money,
anything
yeah.
nefarious going on. It'd just be nice to get some more info.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, I think the motion, I don't know if you made the motion or not, WJ, but was to pay the bills, to withhold those pending more information. Ms. Ripley?
So all tourism expenses or just the Bruce Brother and Jessica Banks? Because we've got like Air Networks with their contracts.
Yeah.
But those-
I think just the
I think just
3,500 and the 5,000.
Well, there was $12,000 in all.
3,500 of that was the Arthur agency.
Yeah.
Arthur agency.
Yeah, but some of these other things are
Need to be paid.
contractual.
I get that.
They sustain it, we've approved over and over again.
Or 1,000 of it was Arthur agency, I'm sorry.
Mr. Evans?
Instead of me providing that at the next meeting, I will send, you know, a mass email to the council with the figures about the budget this week.
Okay.
That way it's a little more timely with what we're trying to do this week.
All right, so I think there's a motion to approve the bills with the exception of the Bruce Brothers and the Bain marketing checks. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Second, it, if you make a motion you want.
All right, well, Show Pittman with the motion and McComb with the second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What did I do with my agenda? There it is. That takes us into our regular committee and commission reports. Up first is Budget and Finance, chaired by W.J. Pittman. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items under old business. Under new business, we have financial statements prepared by Scott. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, WJ. So I have several reports tonight. So the one that I've kind of been waiting on for several months, ever since the great Walmart fire, has been what the effect on sales tax is. That's the very first one. So for June, our combined home rule and sales tax was $329,704, which is down somewhat from the same period last year, which could be partly blamed on the outage for a couple days. But certainly you couldn't argue it that it's a very strong number in relation to the other numbers this year, with the exception of just a couple. So yes, I think we probably did lose some there to some degree, but I don't think it's a large material amount. And thanks to some information from Alderman Austin, I did get a little more sense of how important they are to our puzzle. So typically, they average anywhere from say $170,000 to $180,000 of sales per day. Let that sink in. That's a lot of money, right? What I don't know, and I'm just kind of speculating on this, is the breakdown of that sales between general merchandise, which we get basically 3% of that with the home rule tax and the sales tax, and the groceries and pharmaceuticals, which we only get a 1% tax on. But if you split those evenly and say it's half and half, I did the math, and roughly, of these amounts you see every month, usually in the 300,000 range, I'm very comfortable in saying at least 100,000 of that is Walmart. Okay, so obviously, I feel safe to say like $1 in every $3 we get in sales tax is from Walmart. And that's probably about as close as I can get without, getting more information from the company itself. But certainly, it was not as bad as what we feared originally, whatever that cost was. So we're still very well on track to hit our sales tax projections and what we had last year. Now, the last 6 months, if the inflation continues to rise at the rate that it does, that could have somewhat of a dampening effect on spending. Because we're always a little bit lag behind. This again represents the March sales, so the inflation really wasn't heating up until probably more recently than that. So we'll see, but so far we're doing in pretty good shape for the first 6 payments of the year. Okay. Now, the next report I have is, I've got 2 balance sheets, one as of May 31st, and then for reference, I always put in the previous report, so I also have the balance sheet that we recorded at the end of December. And our assets didn't change much from December till now. We have $25,907,000 in assets now. Had 25.5 at the end of the calendar year. Our debts are down about $400,000 because we did make, in addition to the monthly payments we make, we also did make our first 6-month installment on the EPA loans on the water sewer. So we did actually have an increase in our fund balance, or our equities, to the tune of about $600,000 to $700,000 over that time period. So it's been a pretty good 5 months. And to kind of show you how we got there, the next page is our income statement. we're showing a nice surplus in general fund for the first 5 months. We actually, I almost hate to say this, but we actually have a surplus in water sewer for five months. I probably jinxed it for the rest of the year. But the only funds that we actually had some negatives on were, the biggest one, I guess, is on the rehab loan. We did write off a few meetings ago or a few months ago. We did write off one of the rehab loan balances after receiving payment from the individual. So that's a charge against income. So that temporarily shows a loss on that fund. We have a loss and seized asset because we just purchased 2 vehicles. So that's a timing thing. It's going to take a while for the various taxes and fees and penalties and stuff to catch up with that. So that, nothing unplanned there. So overall, I'm pretty happy with what the performance has been in the first 5 months. So to break down a little more, the next report shows what our cash CDs are. So as of May 31st, total cash in bank, including CDs and money market, is $8,377,000, of which about 5.3 of that is money that doesn't have any external restrictions. We do have the balance of that, about $3,060,000, does represent funds that do have external restrictions, like motor fuel, the bond reserve, and various things that we just can't spend willy-nilly. So, but overall, that number is very strong. So moving on to the next reports, the payroll versus budget. So for the month of May, we spent, and this is citywide, this is general fund and water sewer and even the EMA and tourism. We spent $270,742 in salaries. We budgeted $307 for the month, and so year to date we have spent $1,350,000, and we have budgeted $1,537,000 for the same period. So we have a cushion right now of about $187,000. Keep in mind that this time next month I'll be reporting on June, and we have 3 payrolls for the month, so that's going to eat up some of that. But again, I always say I would rather go into a month like that with a cushion than already start off, in the hole, right? So far so good there. And the last report is the schedule of the operating expenses and revenue just for general fund itself. And it's for me also. So some of those totals are going to be the same as the income statement I just showed you. This just kind of breaks it down into smaller pieces. So through the 5 months, we have spent $2,201,000 in general fund, and you can see the breakdown by department there. The same period, we have budgeted we would spend $2.7 million, so we're $562,000 under budget in our spending so far. And our total general fund revenues, which includes, of course, sales tax, income tax, all that, is $2,851,000, so we're about $87,000 over our projections for revenue. So that's where that $650,000 surplus you see comes from our general fund. And again, we have a couple of anomalies in some of those departments. It's the same reasoning. We on the infotech, we have spent the majority of the radio tower costs this year, whereas we got reimbursed last year, so there's a mismatch in timing there. And I think to some degree it's the same thing on the fire department. We're still waiting on some reimbursements for training and various things of that nature, right?
We got the training reimbursement in this week, and I'm told that the reimbursement for the Louisiana deployment should be coming pretty quick.
Okay.
That's about 20, something like that.
Oh, good. So you're going to see, I think that ship is going to be righted by this time next month unless something else weird happens. Now, what you will notice though is that so far, street department, no, take it back. Now, you see a big surplus in administration, so keep in mind that we have several things in the administration department that we budgeted for that happened this year that have not happened. So we have, various potential building costs that we budgeted for that we have not paid yet. Spending of the first half of the ARPA money that we received last year hasn't happened yet. So you're going to see that, that changed relatively quickly. As well as Venture Lane, or Future Lane. I think you're gonna see most of those bills come through this month, right? So, you know, there was a lot of money there that we are exceeding budget by, obviously, that is gonna change things. So it's not gonna be as rosy, I don't think, the rest of the year. I mean, obviously, we're gonna spend some of that money, and we're not gonna have to have surplus, so. Anyway, that's what I have. Questions?
I do, so, and maybe more for Chief McBride, some of the, I guess, reimbursement that we're getting for sending those guys down to Louisiana, does that account, like, in your payroll, like the overtime and stuff, does that?
Yes.
That's a big portion of that?
Yeah, it's regular rate of pay, overtime, and then there was some travel money, some per diem.
And then now that we've got the new fireman back from academy, we should see that overtime kind of
Well-
level out a little bit, correct?
He still has to get through EMR training yet to count toward minimum staffing, and I'm at the mercy of the hospital system to put that class out there. I'm hoping that'll be in the next month or so, but, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Agenda. Next item under new business is the forgiveness of mercy grants, and we have a report in here also.
That's me too, or Tanner could do the same thing. So if you'll recall, sometime late last year, we brought you a list of the folks that had complied with all the requirements we had for the Mercy Grant to be able to forgive the 90%. And so, you know, that action was taken and those were written off. This represents the balance of everybody else. There were still 3 kind of holdouts at that time that hadn't made their payments yet, but they have since done so. As well as the bottom 5 names didn't receive their money until a later round than the first round did, so they had more time to get that done. So bottom line is all 8 of these businesses now have paid their required 10% as they agreed to when the money was doled out. And so that remaining balance at 90% is $4,515.81. And, you know, in keeping with the terms of the policies we set up, we're recommending that we just write that off and we move on.
And I should note that is everybody.
Yes.
That's all of
Every
them that
single
we-
That's
grant
it.
that's repaid,
Yeah.
and thanks to Charlie for some personal collection as well.
Very good.
Anybody like to make a motion that we forgive the remaining mercy grant?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Cory, second from Gary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any public comment under budget and finance?
I just want to quickly say that this program, this Mercy Grant program, was really the idea of Scott Evans and Sandra Hoopley, and they really put it together in a nice way. We got money out a year before the state got their money out to our local businesses, and this kind of brings it to a wrap. And so it was a good program, and it helps the people out when they need it. So thanks to everybody who made it happen.
And hopefully it made some goodwill too. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that was.
All right, that takes us to building and grounds, chaired by Mr. John Urbis. John?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business and we have no new business. We have any comment from the council or public comment?
Just make the council aware that last week, both air conditioner units that serve the basement in this building went out. The server room temperature got up over 90 degrees, and a piece of telephone equipment overheated, and about half our extensions for the city stopped working. Boss was able to come in that evening and get one of the air conditioner units up and going. We still have one that's down. I believe it fried the control board in it. So our issues in this building continue.
Were those issues I assume unrelated to any kind of maintenance that needed to be done on the units, et cetera?
The one unit downstairs is the same age as the two that are serve the police department. And, I mean, it's just, it's old. I think they're 25, 30-year-old units. The other one that had a control board go out was a newer unit that was a mini split. And they told me they had some issues with those being susceptible to power surges. So I don't know if the power surge got it or exactly what happened. Still don't have that unit repaired yet.
Would it be possible to have something set up to where if the temperature reached above a certain degree in that room due to the sensitivity and expensiveness of the equipment that it could alert us?
I can order a unit. We've got one that we put in the building on State Mill, and we put one at the Range building, so I can certainly order a unit and get it installed there, yes.
How much are those?
Probably $400.
How much is our server equipment worth?
A lot more than that. In the hundreds of thousands probably, so.
Okay.
That's separate from the issue that I spoke on at the last meeting with water power systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to be alerted.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
Chief, is that your,
Checked it yesterday, and so far it's still
working?
everything's holding together.
well, this week ought to be a good test.
Lasting longer than the Titanic.
Keep buying the duct tape to keep it together.
So please buy your.
Let me move on.
Okay, thank you, John. That takes the community relations chair by Mr. Mike Austin. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Under community relations, we have no old business, and under new business, I want to start out by saying, if you ever watch the news at night, the guy will always tell you good evening, and then for the next 30 minutes, he'll tell you why it's not. Okay? Well, we have a lot of very good things going on in Murphysboro, and one of the things that really has really gained a lot of traction is 724 Ministries at the Walker House, and Ed and Jennifer O'Donnell are here tonight to just give us a talk and give us an update on that. So Ed and Jennifer, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the work and for the vision, and keep it going.
Thank you, Alderman. We appreciate the opportunity to let you guys know what goes on down in that red brick house. You drive by there on Sunday and it looks like there's some free giveaways, and there actually are, I guess. But we moved to Murphysboro, fell all over the place. But we moved here right after the infamous derecho in 2009. I moved to take a job down at SIU, and we, in 2014, well, before that, we got involved in serving community meals to the people, and both of us became very enamored with that process. We found it to be very rewarding, and we thought the people enjoyed it. Jennifer and some of her lady friends from church started a monthly meal at the church, and a couple of years later, we took over organizing the Christmas dinner, the community Christmas dinner, from the woman who is ready to transition out. She started and been doing it for 20 years. And so we took that over, so that gave us a lot of exposure to doing what we're doing down here. And what we found with the church, and particularly at the Christmas dinner, for the last time we did it with folks we do it at the KC Hall, which is the building formerly known as the KC Hall, whatever it's called now. But we have, the last time we did it a couple of years ago, we had like 220 folks in there. We've sent out like 80 meals, and so we had a lot of people there, and a lot of people show up on Christmas morning to volunteer for that thing. They just walk in and say, can I help? Some of them call ahead of time, a lot of them don't. But universally, we notice that when the community comes together, and Jennifer organized an entertainment and gifts and stuff, so the people would sit and it was like a Christmas party. Just from people throughout the whole community, people that needed a meal and people that didn't came. And we found that the guests were just happy. It was a great environment. And the people that volunteered, when they left, a lot of times they'd come in and have this deer in the headlights look, like I did the first time I volunteered at the meal at the church. But we got done. I got done. I thought, it was pretty good. I'd do that again. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that reaction. So the volunteers get something out of it. Obviously, the people that come get something out of it. And we thought, we ought to try and find a way in our golden years to do that on a more regular basis. So we decided to buy the house at the corner of 8th and Walnut, across from the, well, you know where it is, it's called, got the Walker House label in front of it.
Couple weeks ago.
Couple of weeks ago. We bought that in 2008, and we bought it specifically with the intention of doing what we're doing, to try and offer a community meal on a regular basis. We renovated the upstairs and moved in there as an apartment, downsized very nicely, and we built out the whole ground floor to be used for different types of outreach. Primarily, we have a relatively large dining area, and we're finishing up a commercial kitchen in the back so we can do meals. What we wanted to do was create an environment not unlike the Christmas dinner, where we have a party where it's a festive event. We wanted to create an environment there where people we hope they feel like it's special, like it's someplace they can go that they maybe don't normally get to go, and it's a historic building. We stuck with the Murphysboro theme. We've got a lot of apples in there because it's Apple City. We've got a lot of pork in there because we're the barbecue capital. And Jennifer was always into angels, so we have our angel collection. So our decorating scheme is angels and apples and pork. Oh my! But we wanted to create something. We hope to create something that people would walk in and say, "This is kind of cool, and I like to be here." Whether we did that or not, I don't know. The guests seemed to like it. We started serving what we call dinner on the house, which is a free meal every Sunday afternoon from 4 to 6. And that's the first program we've started. We hope to expand that. We hope to do other things. Right now, we've got all we can handle, just putting the food on the table on Sunday evening.
We serve every Sunday evening from 4 to 6 p.m., and the meals are always free, and everyone is welcome. We rotate the menu. You don't have a lot of choices, but we do have the last Sunday of every month, we have chicken and dumplings, and then we have things like lasagna, beef stroganoff. This coming week, we're having, help me, we're having,
That stuff. What do you call it? Chicken Alfredo.
Thank you. My mind's hoping with it's like that white creamy sauce.
That age here.
I know, it doesn't get any better. And, like we were doing breakfast for a little while. That didn't seem to be anybody's favorite, so we dropped that off the menu. We change up the sides a little bit. When you come in, you see the menu, you pick and choose what you want. And if there's something you don't like to have, then you don't have to eat it. The servers come through, ask you what you want, they go to the kitchen and get it. You sit down to a table like you would at a restaurant. You have real silverware, napkin, real plates, glasses. You get your beverages at the table. It's like eating at a restaurant. We tried to really practice radical hospitality. The servers are all bubbly and happy, and several of them come in and said, "I always wanted to be a waitress." Why you want to be a waitress? I don't know, but they wanted to be a waitress. So everybody's really upbeat and happy. And we right now are preparing our food at the KC Hall and the Elks Lodge because our cook line is not finished. We have a way to hold the food, but not a way to cook it yet at the house. We're in process. And so that's a real pain, but yeah, we're getting it done. We have been serving an average of 73 guests, 73 guests, I can't read, over the past 6 weeks. That number just seems to be crawling up and up. It was like in the 60s prior to that, so they just keep increasing. We prepare for 100 every week. We figure that's about the max we can accommodate in that 2-hour window. If you plan on coming, I suggest you come about 5:15. 4 o'clock we're usually slammed. There's a lot of times there's a line out the door to get in because some of our clients are known to come about 3:30 and wait until time. But so we're usually really pretty busy with that first rush until about 5, and then it slows down a lot. So we really serve that about 60 folks in that first hour. To volunteer, it takes about 15 people at the house, and we like to have 3 to 5 volunteers in the kitchen for cooks. And that's probably the hardest position to fill, that
It's intense. It's an intense 3 hours getting that food ready in that period of time. If you've ever worked in a commercial kitchen, you know that. But we would love to have you give it a try.
You know, our mission is to reach out to enrich lives. And with this dinner on the house, we really have two very different objectives. We want to create an opportunity for people who might not otherwise have it to come in and eat a meal and be served and sit down and let us take care of them for an hour and a half. We have several groups that come in and we'll stay there for the 2 hours and they just make it a social evening, which is great. If we get really busy, they watch, they notice, and they get out of the way and other people can eat. But the atmosphere, we didn't create it, it kind of happened, is very relaxed and the guests come in and they get served. We give them a decent meal. Most of them are pretty good. Jennifer cooks them. Most of them are pretty good. So, but we want the guests to feel like they've been served. The other objective is something we thought about, but it's not really obvious. We want the volunteers, the people that volunteer, to have the opportunity to come in, to get out of themselves for an hour, to do something for somebody else. And most of you have done that. Murphy's it's a service-oriented town. Most people have done some of that, but when you do that, you feel pretty good about it. I mean, you feel good about what your efforts were, and we wanted to create a model where we could have as many people coming in to do that as we could. The 15 volunteers, we probably could do it with fewer, but we want to create as many slots without having people standing around doing nothing, and we paid a lot of attention to that. And everybody that comes, most of them work their butts off in the first hour. But the woman was there last week. She walked by about 5 o'clock. She turned around. She said, "Ed, I'm having a blast." And that made me feel good. But that's generally the kind of attitude they have. We want the volunteers to get something out of it, and obviously we want the people that come to eat to get something out of it. We have had, in the last 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we started tracking individual people. We asked them to register with us so we can, if we get enough, we have the records, we can qualify for some USDA assistance, etc. But we started to track how many different individuals came by asking them to register. Before that, we were just counting the number of people that we served, but we had a lot of repeat guests, so we don't serve them that times the number of meals anyway. We've had more than 140 different guests in the last 4 weeks. Out of the 73 average guests that we've had, 45% of those in the last 5 weeks have attended more than once, and that's down quite a bit. Early on, like 9 out of 10 folks were coming more than once. So we're growing, we're glad to hear that. 84% of the guests that we served in the last 5 months are qualified for USDA assistance. That's what they do at the food pantry. It's based on, we ask them to tell us what their circle and income level. So again, we can provide this data to the USDA and try and become a member of that organization to get this assistance.
I will add before you go on to that, though, that quite a few of those may be qualified for USDA, but they are not necessarily.
They're not getting other
They're not
assistance,
necessarily
but-
using it.
Yeah, a lot of them. Jennifer's very close involved with the food pantry, so we see a lot of folks in both places. We've had 120 people volunteer since we started. So the impact, we hope this impact is reaching out and helping people to get the opportunity to go serve and helping people who need a meal and who just want to go someplace and be with somebody else. We were hoping, and it's evolving into that, we were hoping this event would be a community event where all the community came and got involved. The other 16% of the folks that aren't qualified for USDA, are folks that come in either to be with the group or come in on Sunday. We would love to have more people in the community just stop by occasionally and eat. It creates a different environment when we've got a mix of people in there. And so we're going to leave you with an invitation to stop by some Sunday afternoon and just have a meal with us. If you just want to come see the house, come do that. But stop by some Sunday and have a meal with us. Think about coming closer to 5 than 4, because at 4 o'clock today you'd melt. But it's busy, so I'll leave you with some famous words and ask you to just come and see. Thank you for your time, folks. Mayor, Alderman, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
And there's a wonderful Santa Claus at the Christmas dinner last year. There was a really great one.
Well, we
It happened to be Ed, but.
We appreciate your efforts very, very much. I mean, the historic preservation aspect of what you did to the building and then the outreach is just really it's It's really just a great example of the character of the community, so thank you for representing it so well.
Thank you. Thank you for your recognition.
Absolutely.
And Mayor, from a father's standpoint, I'll just tell Ed and Jennifer, thank you for being an example for my daughter to witness down at the food pantry. So thank you for doing that.
She's a joy to miss.
You don't know her as well as I know her.
I've seen the good side. Yeah, Daddy always see the rest.
She is a joy, yes. Yes. So thank you both. Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. Thanks.
Are there any public comments under community relations? If not, Mayor, we can move out of community relations and into public improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. That takes us to public improvement. Chaired by Mr. Mike Bastian.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business. We have no new business listed. If we have any public comment, with no public comment, we can close public improvement and move into public works.
That takes us to public works, chaired by Alderman Gary McCollum. Gary?
Thank you, Mayor. Under old business, we made a motion, I think it was the last meeting, to give away the right-of-way out there at Westwood Hills, which we really don't have the right-of-way. We need a motion to do away with it. Doing that motion and then not do anything on it at all, right, Richard?
That's correct. It's in the packet. There would be a cumbersome procedure that the people who are requesting to have that alley vacated to go through, but it would be basically the process of vacating a subdivision plat, which now that all of the lots in Westwood Hills have been sold by the original owner of that land, they would have to have the involvement of all of those owners in going through the process of vacating that plat, which would, if they did that, it would then come back to the city to approve that vacation, but the city on its own cannot vacate those individual, or those easements that run, you can see part of the photocopy of what's in the packet of some, how the easements run, but they run throughout the subdivision, all around it, certain places through it, for the benefit of all of those individual lots. Reserved for those lots, they're not city easements that the city can, on its own action, relinquish as they were land.
So are they actually owned by the subdivision itself?
The individual lots are just subject to those easements. The easements are there.
Okay.
Some may or may not be easements.
Okay.
Easements that are there. Those individual lots are subject to.
So you're asking us to rescind what we...
My recommendation is to rescind the action taken at the last meeting to approve relinquishing or abandoning the easement in question between lots 7 and 8.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. That's all under old business. Under new business, consideration of the bids for the repairs of Watson Road. Harold, was the total amount on that $53,030?
No, if you were, what we found out, we tried to put the oil shipping out for bid. We did talk to Alani, and they did not want to be involved in the patching work that was required on Watson Road. There's four locations that we're going to excavate and put in some base rock and then 6 inches of CA6 before we go ahead and oil chip it. So we solicited bids and got 2 bids from one from Samron, one from ACIS, Chester, and low bid was $15,500 from Samron, and that was well within what I think our estimate that we presented to the council was for the repair.
So you suggest we go with Samron?
I do recommend we go ahead and award that to Samron.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I so move. Will we go with Samuel?
The motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. And the next is a consideration resolution to use MFT funds for the repairs on Watson Road.
And again, this resolution, we probably could use the monies that have already been approved in the general maintenance to pass every year in December, January. But again, this just sets aside that $20,000 to pay for that what's in road improvement, and if we don't use it, then it just goes back into the account.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. The next one's a consideration of the bid for the 2022 all-in chip program.
That is very good. The low bid we got from line $53,035.90.
Yeah, I had them mixed up.
And it's just a hair over oil, like everything else, has gone up a little bit this year. Usually they're very good about telling us that price before we put the estimate out, but again, they're the only game in town, so there's not much else we can do. It's just 0.87% over our estimate, so we would recommend awarding that to the line item.
Have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. And something else while we're on talking about the all-in chip program. Darren needs a lot more time the next time we're gonna all-in chip, you know, because it takes pretty well most of his crew just to get stuff trimmed out of the alleys and everything. That, Darren, when was you wanting to have like a notice when we're gonna do it that summer?
I told you when we were talking the other day, I would like to get brought to the council late September, early October, so you can go ahead and agree on it, know what project we're gonna do, give the engineers time to get us the plans, and we can get started on it 4 months earlier than what we normally do.
Yeah, so, you know, and if you drive down some of the alleys, they're having to work in, cutting limbs, hanging, and, you know, getting stuff prepared.
But I would say, I mean, you know, just getting on a line item schedule right now is kind of difficult, so, you know, we'll try to get a date when we think we can get on that schedule and talk to Darren and see how that fits, how much prep time he's gonna need to get all that ready.
Yeah, they just, you know, next year when we do, if we do all-in shipping in another part of town, we can let Darren know a long time before we've been doing it, that his crew can get out there and work when they got time to do a block or two, or,
The most time-consuming thing is trimming the alley back. We
Yeah.
spent about 8 weeks now, at least 4 days a week, 3 guys working on it, some days 4, some days 5, so that's what I'd like the time, you know, so we can have that ready. As far as peeling them out, patching them, we can have them ready in 2 weeks if I put everybody on. The time-consuming thing, like I said, is trim.
and one other thing I like, don't want to vote on it or anything. Several years ago, I don't remember exactly how many years ago it's been, we bought a Kubota diesel zero-turn lawnmower. We've got 1,100 hours on that thing now. And we're probably gonna have, if that makes it through the year, we might be lucky, we might not, but what I'd like to do would get with Darren and look around for another zero-turn. We don't have to go to the diesel, but we could get a price. You know, we spent about, if I remember right, we spent less than $9,000, I know, on that Kubota. But we could look at a Bad Boy or Gravity or something, but like me and Darren, just call around and then maybe go look at them. Usually, I think, about a 54-inch, isn't it, Darren? We can't get too big. We can't get it in some of the places. If you get too small, it takes them a lot longer to mow, but I'm figuring somewhere between $4,500 and $6,000 this time to maybe get one. If this makes it through the year, then we could budget it for next year or whatever, you know.
And just so I think everybody understands, the one that you're talking about is having some problems.
Yeah, well, it kind of, they'll be mowing and it just kind of quits. And it throw the arms back and it'll start and it might run for 30 seconds and do it again, or it may run for a half hour and not do it, you know. And like I say, got 1,100 hours on it, a lot of hours. It is a diesel. And what you can do, if we find one that we do buy, we can run this one that we have through Canning's auction out there, or you keep it for a spare in case the other one goes down. I mean, it's just whatever the council do. I just want to make you aware of what's going on with it. But if it, and I know Charlie's keeping us up pretty good on mowing grass, but if it goes down, then we're gonna be in a problem of getting one. So it's better to go ahead and get lined up, or maybe we can get one. I know sells, I think it's a Big Boy or Bad Boy or something, but the trouble is, they don't service what they sell. The one we bought over the other side of Carterville from a Kubota dealer. You know, you can't buy one from Mark Williams anymore. He's out of business. There's nobody in town to buy one from. But,
Tri-County will our tractor. Tri-County will our tractor, they do Tuck Cadet, don't they?
out here,
Norman Brad.
yeah, they can't even get them more.
Can't
They got one this year and it sold in 2 days. And it wasn't a zero turn. The only zero turn they had was used out there. But I mean, it's just something we can figure out maybe what we need and then come back and tell you guys. I just wanted to throw that on the council so they would know. Is there any public comment on Public Works?
Gary?
The oil insurance.
Mr. Glenn?
I have a question for Harold. I drive 7th Street because I'm curious about things going on, and I'm, you know, and we appreciate getting your reports, but you're saying that MediaCom and Frontier are still in the process of relocating their utilities, and, you know, I drove it yesterday and nobody's doing anything. And all the, you know, the people out there are still living with this mess, and I just didn't know if there's anything that we can do to get MediaCom and Ameren to be a little more cooperative and finish theirs so we can get to the nuts and bolts.
So I can give you a little update on that, actually.
Good.
Earlier, or late last week, I had some of the same concerns. And so what I found after a few phone calls was that the utility poles that were in the ground there were the delay, according to Dave Murray, on being able to move forward with the next steps of the project. And because the best appointment I ever made to my right, which is your left, helped me out, those poles, a work order has been drawn up, and those poles will be removed very shortly, because apparently there was a little bit of a communication breakdown, and so the project should be once again moving forward next week after those poles are removed. So, you know, Frontier and all those removed all their infrastructure, cut the tops off the poles, and the poles were left there, and they were still in the way of being able to get the storm drains in, which is the next step. So there should be some motion there again, or some action again pretty soon.
Good to hear.
Yeah, because it's been slow moving.
What is the projected end date on that?
Well, I think,
Guess that's fine.
you know,
23,
I mean, October?
I don't want to say, because I think it's been a real moving target for Samron based upon their ability to move employees from one project to the other to get things done. I think that there's a very slim possibility that there could be substantial completion yet this year. That's what I'm told, but they're not willing to guarantee that.
Okay.
So, but I think summer of '23, maybe even late spring, it could be done.
Okay. Okay. Just as
So,
a,
that's what I'm being told.
Is there
Thank
any,
you, Mayor. That's good news, because, like I said, I drive that frequently, and I'm thinking of our citizens out there
Yeah.
have lived with this as long as they have, and they deserve a break.
Amen.
I work nearby and I have seen them in the last week, the trucks. They come in and visit, so.
Are they doing anything?
But I feel the zero turn and the air conditioners, this is the season for them, the whole thing.
I have one other item under Public Works, Gary, if I could.
go ahead.
Our code enforcement officer, Mr. Isert, and Blaine have been very busy, and it has created a lot of work orders for the Public Works Department in terms of cleanup of houses and whatnot. And in conversations with Darren, there is a need for some additional help. But in the past, we have done some summer help staffing. I think that we need to do that again between now and the end of this mowing season in particular. Especially in light of the fact that we do have a longtime employee in the street department, and Mr. Holloway, who is going to be retiring. I think his last day is going to be sometime in late August there. And oftentimes, our summer help folks have proven to be good candidates for full-time positions, and we have a full-time position that's going to be coming open. So I was working with Ms. Ripley. She's drawn up a job description that I would like to go ahead and share on our social media and mine to try to generate some interest in that. It would maybe help us recruit somebody to fill in for a retiring employee, and also help cover some bases on getting work done that's difficult to get done with the current load in staffing. I saw Mr. McComb, and then I'll go to Bart.
I think what is the age limit we're going to restrict from being so young?
Mary, I hadn't thought about that. What's your
Well,
suggestion?
I think one time we had a problem with, I give the guys a community service worker, and he lied to him about having a driver's license. And one of the police officers seen him, said, "We don't have no driver's license." Well, we got that straightened out, so if anybody comes to work for the city, we have to run them through the police department, you know, if they're gonna drive any of our
Right.
vehicles, to make sure they have a driver's license and check their driver's record. And I thought there we passed that at 17 or 18, wasn't it?
I'd like to see them be 18 years old out of high school, or that way if they do work out, then we're ready to put them to work, you know.
So, I mean, if you
Had
just,
better luck with over.
if you talk about some, the least they could be is 18. I guess they could be up in their 20s if they wanted a summer job.
Well, the job description that Ms. Ripley drew up that I was going to share had the line, applicants must be at least 18 years of age and possess a valid Illinois driver's license. This position requires the ability to perform a variety of skilled manual laboring activities requiring physical strength and coordination, as well as use of basic hand tools, string trimmers, and mowers. So that was really...
What, might as well ask now, what kind of wage scale are you going to pay for? I mean, we're going to have to advertise that probably too. There ain't no sense if, you know, some guy thinks he's going to make $28 an hour and we're not paying it.
Right.
We need to put a wage scale in there. If you,
I thought that the union contract might dictate what temporary employees like that,
No, I don't know.
but I don't recall.
Do you guys know if that's in, if there's anything?
I steer clear of the contract, so I
I,
have no idea what.
you know, I haven't read theirs for a while. I don't know either.
Well, I mean, I
I
would
don't
think
think
that
it has anything for part-time.
in the past, we had always, Mr. Lee,
When I started working here, I think in the late 90s, they used to hire high school kids to come in and work minimum wage.
Right.
I don't think the union had any issue with it. Just part-time, summer help.
well, I guess that would be $13 an hour currently.
yeah.
Is it 12? All right. Does it go up July 1?
January.
January 1 this year? Okay.
So Mary, if a high school, and I'm asking this question, if a high school student would come in his last year of high school and work that part-time position, would he be a union employee?
No.
No, part-time is
No.
not union.
1,000 hours.
Okay.
Exceeded 1,000 hours, he'd have to join the union, but he wouldn't necessarily be a city employee.
Well, what I'm asking then is if he had to join the union, would he have to quit?
Well, I'm not sure because.
As part-time, they don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the union's part-time help, the union wants anything to do with them at that time. If they come into a permanent hire, then they go into the union.
Scale, right. We've done this before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just
I'm just
part-time
asking
help,
just
and it wasn't anything to do with contract.
If that employee exceeds 1,000 hours, they'll have an option.
Okay.
Join the union, and the city at that time would have to make a hire, or they would have, they're done, and you hire someone else
And under those, they can be off, if they work 1,000 hours, they have to be off, what, 6 months? And then they come back and work. SIU does the same thing.
Okay. I just, in my mind, I was thinking if they ended up being part of that union, then they would not actually have to stop working, would
Right.
they? Yeah.
Ms. Hughes?
I need to ask Darren something. At one time, a few years ago, you and I talked about the summer, quotes, part-time summer help. And I know this is a little late in the game, but you wanted to start them earlier because by the time you got them trained, it was time for them to be over. Do you have that concern this year, or you just need enough, you need help so badly
We
that?
just need some extra
that-
help. The
that you
strain
can
and
put up with
complaint
that.
Charlie are putting on my department,
Yeah,
they don't ask that of any other department in the city of Murphysboro. And, you know, I mean, and they're doing their job, I understand.
yeah, I get that.
You know,
I just
last
didn't want to
Thursday,
put
I
you
took
in
my
a
entire
position.
department for 8 hours.
I know, they were
7 guys.
they were down at my neighborhood.
And to clean up, I think we ended up with 15 yards cleaned up out of the 20 or 25 that needed to be done. So, you know, basically, we had 56 hours involved
Yeah.
in those yards.
You were in the historic preservation area a good long time, I know that, and I thank you for that. My concern was if this part-time help was going to be an advantage for you. What I don't want.
And then again, I brought this up to the mayor, every other Friday, I lose a guy to the dump.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
had the chip.
Yeah. Yeah, you
We
could send
fought
him down there
mosquitoes
if
on
nothing
Thursday
else.
night, every Thursday night, I
Yeah.
lose a guy to that.
Yeah.
And then in addition to, it's summertime, and what's most people wanna do? They wanna take vacations.
Yeah,
Mayor,
okay,
yes.
thank you. I just want.
Guys, let's get one at a time on this. Charlie, you got a question?
If I can maybe help with that conversation, we've kind of, excuse me, we've kind of like drawn back the reins on some of the properties because Darren, his guys obviously can't keep up. I didn't realize there's a lot extra that goes into what his guys do, the city parks in town that they mow. There's, I think, 53 city yards that they have to keep up with, just properties in town. I've got another 19 to add, and that's just ones I've found. There's, and I haven't went looking for them. There could be 20 to 25 more. There's, Darren and his guys went to one house for a good 6 hours, hauled out like 8 loads, 8 full city truckloads from one house. I've got like 8 of those right now. So that can help anybody's, judgment on what he needs now as far as getting them trained. I can't speak for him on that, but I think any 18-year-old plus kid can probably get on a lawnmower and go mow grass if that would be the restraint.
Mr. Bastian?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I do want to thank Charlie and I do want to thank Darren because they did clean up a house in our ward. I think they took 5 truckloads of stuff to the dump. It was disgusting, it was ridiculous, and it did need to be done, so thank you for that. But I think what we're talking about part-time, I think what you're saying is, I don't think we're talking about hiring a high school student just to help for the summer and then to leave. Aren't you talking about one part-time that can eventually work in to replace Jeff? That we want to get somebody to train and then to work into that position? I mean, or am I misunderstanding what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that we want to hire somebody up to 1,000 hours, and often those people then get experience, and we can kind of evaluate them, and they become good candidates for the full-time position.
Right.
Not guaranteeing them that.
Right, it's not a guarantee,
But
but,
saying that, Roy Phoenix is a
I was
good
gonna say,
example.
that's a good example.
He
Yeah.
worked
Right.
in the summer help role, and we got to understand he was a good worker, and so when a position came open, we had that knowledge of him, and it made him a good hire.
right, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, in
Yeah.
a way, but just so I'm clear, obviously wouldn't be guaranteeing somebody.
Right, not a guarantee, but what I kept hearing was high school student to come in and help, and then I thought maybe it was somebody to train to hopefully they would do well, and then they would work their way into the position, so I.
Well, like, you're not gonna get many kids in high school that's 18 yet, maybe a
right,
senior,
right.
a late senior.
I get
But-
that, that's what I'm saying, I don't know why we keep talking high school kids, why does it
Well,
have to be a
it's
high
not-
school
it
kid?
doesn't have
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be. But the other thing about your part-time help, if they don't work out, you send them on down the road. They got no ties with the union, If they're not working and doing what they're supposed to do with Darren, showing up on time, you send them down the road and get somebody else. You know,
And Mayor,
Yes.
this might sound a technicality, but it is not a part-time or full-time. It's a temporary or permanent position. So we can hire a full-time temporary position
Right.
through go, it might be a technicality, but if we present a part-time, everybody's expecting to work 20 hours.
Well, the terminology,
25.
look, the bottom line is this would be a 40-hour-a-week person up to 1,000 hours to
Yes.
help clean the
Temporary
houses
job.
and mow
Right.
grass. That's what we're talking about. They'd have to be
Temporary
18 years
full-time.
old or older.
Yep, yeah.
So,
That's a technicality.
anyway,
is there any more questions from the council? Any public comment from the public? Then we'll move on.
thank you, Mr. McCall. That takes us to Public Safety Chair by Mr. Russell Brown. In his absence, I'll handle these items. We have under old business consideration to request to vacate alley behind 464 North 9th Street. I'm trying to recall where we left this off.
We held it off because we didn't have.
We didn't have enough
I went
people.
down and looked.
I
at it.
met with him today, and he showed me the map. And basically what they explained me is that in the winter, because it's a drop down, what they wanna do is resurface. And it's a little section of what they basically need to vacate. But they cannot do anything until the city doesn't relinquish. And they actually are planning, or I don't know if it's in the process of buying the properties, 4 different lots that they are right behind that if they are actually just woods right now, and they have been maintaining it, whatever they can do. So, but I did meet with him today and asked me about status.
All right, well, is there a motion to vacate the alley?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, something else, Mayor. I'm sorry, late in the game, but whenever we do the vacate the alley, are we gonna put the parameters where it's gonna be from this point to that point?
I have an ordinance prepared that,
Okay.
that does it.
Because he asked me that, and, yeah, thank you.
Once that's done and recorded, they can get provided to the cop.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Under new business, we have the consideration of an ordinance to remove a loading zone and 15-minute parking on South 16th Street between Walnut and Spruce Street.
Move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I tried to remove them the other day and couldn't.
Yes. Motion carries. Next, we have the consideration of a street closure on North 10th Street from Locust to Hanson on June the 18th, 2022. Somebody tell me what this is for, Mr. McBride.
I'm prepared to ask council permission to close that this Saturday for 5-inch hose testing. We normally, we're doing that out at the high school, and we were gonna try doing it here where we're closer to the art facilities. However, we've decided to push that off due to the over 100 heat indices. I don't wanna wear my guys out and then catch a structure fire in the afternoon, so. And I'd asked Darren to clean the street, so I'm gonna unask him to clean the street, and I'll get back with him. So I'll come back to you with that request unless the council would like to give me permission to do it as needed for 5-inch hose testing on a given Saturday. If we found one that was cool, you know, cooler weather. If you want me to come back at some point, I'll just come back. Doesn't matter.
What time?
Usually it would be from about 8 until 11 a.m., about 3 hours, is what it takes for us to get all, there's about 3,500 feet of 5-inch hose. We have to unload it all, test it, and then load it back on the truck, so.
I'd make a motion to give him permission on the, when you find a Saturday that you can do it
I'll second.
at any time.
All right, we have a motion and a second to let the chief do that at his discretion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Up next, we have the consideration of declaring police department property as surplus. Chief Ellemeyer?
Yes, what it is in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of police departments in the area started coming out with some new weaponry. What it is, we obtained 2 Colt, they're 9mm SMGs. What they are is they're kind of like a submachine gun type style gun. Like I said, come back, they started getting passed out and was purchased for police departments late 90s in that area. They shoot the 9mm just like a handgun. A few years later, it started coming out with the AR-15s. So that takes care of that gun whatsoever, and they've just been sitting down, locked up in a safe, and they're just sitting there, and they're probably worth $1,000, $1,200 a piece. They were purchased from the city. They weren't obtained in any other means. And we're just looking to go ahead and get those out of our inventory. And we do have one federal dealer that has reached out that's interested in them. But we just want to clear them off the inventory and get them out of the safe so we don't have them just laying around.
They're not fully automatic, are they, Chief?
No, they'll shoot a 3-round burst. You pull the trigger once, you'll get a 3-round burst out of them, but some of them were fully automatic, but these aren't.
I'd make a motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to declare that property as surplus. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Up next, we have a consideration of an amendment to the ordinance on the use of fireworks. Mr. Blake or Mr. Ellemeyer, either one.
Well, I'll speak on it, and then both Chief Ellemeyer and Chief McBride can. This was discussed somewhat after the last 4th of July issues that came up in fireworks being used on 4th of July, which is done in a fashion contrary to state law, but everybody looked and said, well, our state ordinance says you can do it. So what this ordinance will do, there's a copy of the old ordinance, if anybody will have a chance to look at it, the new one is very similar to what Mr. Carbondale's. It incorporates a lot of definitions from the state statutes, the Pyrotechnic Use Act, which used to be known as the Fireworks Use Act. As far as their definitions, water covered fireworks, and that they are not allowed to be sold, possessed, or used. It is in accordance with state law. It then provides provisions for fireworks displays, and again, it adopts certain definitions and procedures and licensing that's set forth in the state act. Basically, this statute will bring the city code in compliance with what's required by the city statutes on fireworks usage. And what is in your packet, I did make, after Chief McBride reviewed the draft of the ordinance that is in your packet, he suggested 2 revisions. One would be to, if you look at paragraph C7, which deals with the exception for pyrotechnic displays, we provide for an investigation fee with a $35 amount for that fee. Chief McBride had suggested we refer to it as an inspection fee and make it $75, which he said from his email to me will cover any overtime costs or expenses involved in the fire department doing that. So from what in your packet, I have made that revision to the draft I would have for any passed if the city does consider wanting to draft pass that ordinance. I can let Chief McBride or Chief Ellemeyer get in any more specifics or issues with that ordinance, what they would like to do with fireworks usage.
Thank you, Richard. You know the Chief's thoughts?
Yeah, if you remember last year, we had a tremendous amount of calls on the fireworks, and our people are having to say, well, it's legal for them to do it, and everybody's like, how in the world is it legal to let this go on? And so that's kind of what brought it to the forefront also with the situation at the city fireworks that's down at Riverside Park. People commandeering the road and taking it over and shooting fireworks off the road. And, 100, 150 people down there, and you got 4 or 5 police officers working a little bit hard to deal with. So it's just the kind of the beginning of trying to, nobody's gonna make it perfect. We're not gonna run around town and write everybody tickets, but if it's a neighbor calling and it's a certain time or whatever, and they want it's just kind of the beginning of putting it back in order because it's so far the other direction, just because it's always been that way. I think it takes a lot of liability off of the city, you know, as Richard's area of it going against state law. I think if it's free reign to shoot fireworks off, you have houses catch on fire, then I think some of that liability will fall back on the city if you don't have an ordinance saying, like everybody else does, you're not supposed to do that, at least. So it's kind of our views on it, I think.
All right, is there a motion to
So moved.
adopt the amendment?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Point of order, I'm sorry. Do we need to mention incorporating his suggestion on that C7?
Yes.
$75.
Do we have a motion and a second to adopt as amended? And I believe we do.
Yes.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any public comment on public safety? Hearing none, we'll go to personnel. Ms. Barbecue, Ms. Barb.
We can do this really quick, probably, Mayor. There's no old business, no new business, and is there public comment on personnel? Hearing none, I think we can get out of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to my mayor's report. We're short a couple folks on the zoning board of appeals. Recently, they tried to host a meeting, didn't have a quorum. Mr. Maloney asked me to find some qualified folks to serve. I'm very thankful that we have with us tonight both Nick Williams and Lawrence Nolan, but I'd like to offer up as appointments to the zoning board of appeals. Questions or comments from the council?
They're both here, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Gary, what's up?
I know you, and I know him.
Thank you for being here.
I make the motion to see them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to make both appointments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you for coming. Oftentimes, our appointees don't attend, and we're trying to make a point to make sure that they do. So, thank you for your willingness, sir. Appreciate that very much.
Well, to
Yes.
follow up on the orders, can we do something, do we need to do something on the website or whatever, just to let folks know that this year's different?
Probably could start now since it is so late.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be hard,
Holiday
but-
rolls around.
If we put something on the website, would it be worth utilizing our text? Do we still have our text?
We do.
And just providing a link to that, saying here's information on our fireworks and.
Yeah.
Or we got time.
Mhm.
Do we have time in the water bill? Well, no, we wouldn't, no. I was thinking.
I think we should try to do
I
something.
think it should be on the website too, and it's gonna be in the paper.
Well, certainly, once we get that, I want to meet with the chief and set a realistic expectation about what we can do in terms of enforcement and whatnot. I think if we put out an announcement that, we've adopted a new ordinance, and then we get 200 phone calls, and every resident says, this guy's violating the ordinance.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's gonna be very difficult to cover all those bases after we've said, by God, that's we got an ordinance.
That's true.
So,
You know, I think, Mayor, most people are considerate enough to kind of let things go on a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of how other jurisdictions kind of work with this too. But when it's 2 days before or a day after and it's still going on, or if it's 1:30 in the morning and it's still happening and in the middle of the street, those are the things that we're looking for. It's not, we don't want to ruin everybody's party, we want everybody to have a good time.
Right.
But at the same time, people just gotta get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work, and go to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
yeah, if you've got twins that are easily awakened, and then the rest of them.
They left a mess on Commercial Street last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to down there. That was a train wreck.
All right, well, we'll consider that. We are gonna have to use the executive session tonight, just to let everybody know, to give an update from the building committee. So, sorry to spoil your plans, but we'll go to council member requests and Ms. Hughes.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Curry Witzman.
I'm happy to say.
Ms. Campbell.
I'll be quiet tonight.
All right, Mr. Austin.
No, sir, thank you, Mayor.
Clerk Hunziker.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Pittman.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Urbis.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. McComb.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Bastian.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Glad.
Question for Brian at the sewer plant.
The UPS replacement was scheduled the Friday before Memorial Day. A technician from Snyder Electric arrived and completely disassembled everything that they had shipped. And about 4 hours into it, he realized that the 3 parts that they had sent did not work together. And so he put everything back together and put it in the boxes. And Snyder Electric is trying to find a combination of stuff that will work together that they actually have sitting in a warehouse somewhere that they can get to us. They have quite a bit of their stock that is not available right now and back ordered. So to date, they don't have, they haven't been able to tell me when they're gonna get us something that will work.
Okay. It's on some ship off California.
Somewhere, yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
We'll go to Department Head request. Attorney Blake.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Ripley. Mr. Evans.
Nothing, thank you.
Chief McBride.
I'm good, thank you, sir.
Chief Ellemeyer.
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Volley.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Manwaring.
Nothing.
Mr. Sheffer.
Yeah, I would like to talk about paintings on the update you have there. The prices, we've talked about this going up and up and up, and so it is, as we've sent in this funding nomination every year, we have kept bumping that price up, and we're up to 950,000. I'm not saying it's gonna be anywhere near that, but if you don't have that high of a number, then you won't get loan forgiveness for 50% of it, whatever it might be. So hopefully after July 1st, we can get some clarification on the loan forgiveness and put that thing out to bid. And it would be more than likely it'll be a spring, summer, next year job, so.
Thank you for that update. Mr. Iser.
Just want to say thanks to Darren and Tim's guys for getting all my code, not all my coherence, but getting majority of coherence caught up. There's a bunch, still is a bunch, but.
Thank you. I know sometimes when everybody's working hard, it can create some log jams, but it's part of the process, and thank everybody for doing their jobs. Mr. Lee? Mr. Gladson? Mr. Mills?
No.
All right, with that, I'll take a 5-minute, 10-minute recess, and when we come back, we'll have an executive
Hey, Harold.
session.
When I ask-
I told them I was gonna call the health department, that's what's hospital, and they cleared it, and they agreed it was pitiful. They had to wear a mask.
I'll get it all discussed.
I'm like, I'm not gonna listen to it anymore. They said, you know, call the media. I said, I'm gonna meet the media down there. I'll tell them I tried.
How are you? It is. John, speaking of band, he's in the booth and on crutches. Yeah, he fractured his ankle.
It's okay.
On the golf plate.
I'll let Dustin know.
Okay.
As soon as I get finalized.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And he's supposed to be 2 weeks kind of like not only bearing crutches, and this is he's not fully finished with
And now I just sent your email.
I was right.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
but I can add it.